Hey team, welcome to Anime Shoshin. My name is Blake and this is Merv.
Hello.
And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the acclaimed anime Erased.
This is the Anime Shoshin. Are you ready?
And joining us today, we have Let me do that again. And joining us today, we have Walk the Cinema with us. So, Kate, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, we're Walk the Cinema podcast. We do a Monday episode every week where we cover a movie that we watched. There's no real theme. It's just movies that we enjoy or don't. We're going to have some really bad movies that we could just make fun of. And we don't really cover anime too much, but we have 2 episodes with Anime Shoshin, so you can check those out for more anime content.
And for real, it's an excellent podcast, so please give it a listen. You will enjoy it. I think probably my favorite thing about the Walk the Cinema podcast is the selections, the movies that you pick. Mm-hmm. It's not like Spider-Man. Let's talk about Spider-Man. It's, we just talked about Interstellar 5555 or Interstellar 45, whichever name you want to use. So I love the eclectiveness, I guess, if that's a way to put it, or the variety, or that you pick movies that aren't just normal, that you hear everyone else talk about. So I love that about your podcast.
Yeah, if you go down the list, you're bound to find one you've never heard of.
Within like 5 episodes, I would say, you're going to find one that you hadn't heard of. So as usual, we're going to go ahead and start with our rating. And I'm going to go ahead and go first comes Rock, John, Ken, Pon. And when I get to Pon, if everyone could just hold up your hand, 1 through 5, what you give this, and then we will discuss.
Will you recommend this to us? First comes Rock, John, Ken, Pon.
So is everyone ready to give your rating? Say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, here we go. First comes Rock, John, Ken, Pon. All right, we got some 4s.
Lots of 4s out there. I gave it a 4.
All right, I gave it a 5, and then Walk the Cinema gives this a 4 out of 5. So everyone liked this, which is good. And everyone will recommend this to
That's kind of boring. I'll give it a 1.
Nice. All right. So I'm glad everyone enjoyed this because it was my recommendation, and that's not bragging. I just feel good inside in my heart that I recommended something that everyone liked. So that's awesome. Let's take a moment and talk a little bit about what Erased is about.
It is necessary to set the record straight regarding our tale. You must study this series of events. You may find more. You may not.
So it's 2006, and Satoru is a 29-year-old aspiring manga artist pizza boy with a power he calls revival, where he automatically goes back in time when something bad happens. He's often able to help fix it, and we are shown early on how this works. Satoru's mom then reminds him that when he was in 5th grade, 2 of his classmates went missing. She also happens to figure out that the wrong person was blamed for the kidnappings and subsequent kid killings, unfortunately, and then gets herself murdered. Satoru finds her body, and as he tries to run from the cops, he ends up revivaling again and goes all the way back to 1988, just days before the kids go missing. He spends time reacclimating to his 11-year-old life, and Satoru commits to saving Kaio, one of the girls who goes missing. So he makes friends with Kaio and starts working on changing the past. He also has this habit of saying things out loud that he's thinking, which is often some pretty good comic relief. As the date of Kaio's disappearance nears, he learns that Kaio has an abusive mother. And on the lighter side of things, his efforts turn Kaio into his girlfriend, at least in the eyes of their classmates. Disappearance day arrives and Kaio doesn't go missing. Instead of murder, they make sandwiches. But all is not well. Satoru just delays things and Kaio goes missing just a few days later. The press and authorities mostly bury the story under the guise of protecting the kids from scary stuff, which I thought was very interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about. Then the second kid goes missing, and Satoru ends up back in 2006 with Kaio and his mom still dead and the police thinking he did it. No matter how much his friend Irie and an old acquaintance of his mom try to help him, Satoru still ends up arrested. In that moment, he's able to blast himself back to 1988 to a moment of deja vu he had a day or two before Kaio went missing. This time, his friend Kenya helps, and this solidifies what this story is about, which we'll talk about later, or I'll talk about later, unless Murph does it first in his writer bit, which he may.
I won't.
Okay, cool. But this time, everyone works together to hide Kaio on a bus. Eventually, they have to get the adults involved, and Kaio ends up going to stay with her grandmother. On the way home riding with his school teacher, Satoru grabs something sticking out of the glove box and a bunch of candy falls out. The teacher says it's how he deals with quitting smoking. I say, uh-oh, never take candy from strangers, kids.
I always take candy from strangers.
Nice.
Seriously, if anyone has candy,
You'll take it.
wrapped, unwrapped,
Doesn't matter.
little pocket lint, I'll just blow it off.
Razor blades, pins, totally fine. Yep.
Yeah.
Now that Kaio is safe, Satoru and his friends go to work trying to save the other kids that disappear. The villain is revealed, which I'm sure we'll discuss in more detail, but he takes Satoru in a stolen vehicle off to get murdery. Yashiro dumps the stolen car into the river with Satoru locked inside.
Yashiro! I know your future!
We get some exposition from Yashiro about hamsters, hell, spiders, and Buddha, and then we see that Satoru survives Yashiro's attempt to kill him. But now Satoru is in a coma, and he wakes up 15 years later with amnesia. Soon Satoru reveals to his friends that he remembers everything. There's a showdown, and the story ends with Yashiro headed to prison for attempted murder, and Satoru becoming a famous manga creator. So that, my friends, in great detail, is what Erased is about. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
That was the one I watched too.
That was the same. Okay, good. So we all watched the same show.
The anime one, not the live action, right?
Yeah, not the... At first I watched Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, good.
I was like, this can't be right.
No, that's not it. We're an anime show.
I still watched it.
Yeah. Was it good?
It's good. It's fine.
It's 90s action, right? Or is it early 2000s?
I mean, if you like 90s Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, you're going to like it.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, maybe we'll talk about that next time.
It's like the tail end of his good.
The Last Action Hero was a movie he was in.
Yes.
All right. So, Merv,
Mm-hmm.
from a writer's perspective, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you think they did with the Erased?
Regale us with your wit, storyteller.
Well, what I'm going to actually throw out to everybody is how time travel is handled in stories. And what we want to talk about is, what's your favorite time travel movie and or show? I didn't even know this was a time travel show. It's a mini-series, I guess, technically, when we started it. But I'm also reading a book called The Gone World by Tom Sweeterlish. I don't know how to say his last name. It's very long, has a lot of consonants in a row. But it's a time travel story where when the characters, it's a whodunit time travel story, which is like my favorite genre, whodunit with some sort of fantastical element. And the detective, Shannon Moss, is the main character. She goes into the future, and whenever someone goes into the future in this world, they create their own future. So nothing exists when they jump back, because they jump to a probability, not an actual future. But they go to the future to see if they can find clues about a crime that happened in their present. So it has some cool elements to it, but some of the other, Back to the Future is one everyone knows. Steins Gate is another anime that has time travel in it that we have done a show on. Groundhog's Day, I think, is a pretty famous time travel one. Quantum Leap, I don't know. That's an old television show. I don't know if you youngins are familiar, but really good show. So I just want to know, Is there a time travel show or story that you've read or watched that you really didn't like, that you didn't think the time travel worked, or one that you really did like?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I probably should have DM'd it to you like a week ago, but instead I'm just going to do it right here.
The first that came to mind was Palm Springs, which is a Groundhog's Day type situation.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's stuck in the same day and lives it over and over again, and I think it's really funny. I don't love Groundhog's Day, but I do love Palm Springs.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
That I might have heard about.
Yeah.
And the second one I thought of was American Pickle,
In old country of Schlupska, I am ditch digger.
where I guess it's not really time travel, but a guy pickles himself in the 40s and then gets revived in the 2020s.
It's been 100 years. The pickle brine preserved him perfectly.
Okay.
I think that's time travel. Yeah.
That's time travel.
Yeah.
By pickle.
By pickle.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's not.
It's got Seth Rogen in it.
Okay.
So,
But it's not bad. I would give it a watch.
I feel like this is a really hard question. I feel like Doctor Who kind of has this, time travel, but it's like space and time. And
So I have to ask, who's your favorite doctor?
I always like David Tennant.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know which doctor is the best doctor. That's why you always like David Tennant, because he is the best one. 100%.
I've never watched Doctor Who. So.
There are some episodes that are better than others, and they deal with the time travel a little bit better. But I really liked an episode that was actually a Matt Smith episode where he was the doctor. It was like their Christmas special. And they have this Scrooge character that's on this planet, and he's mean and stuff. And so the doctor, in order to save his buddies, has to go back in time to when he was a kid and try to convince him to, not be an awful person in the future. And so he pulls this girl that's in this cryogenically frozen situation because she's sick and there's no cure for her and she only has 3 days to live. So they pull her out a couple times throughout this guy's childhood or throughout his life, and he kind of falls in love with her towards the end of his life, or towards the middle, I guess, of his adult life.
Better a broken heart than no heart at all.
You try it. You try it. Why are you here?
Because I'm not finished with you yet. You've seen the past, present, and now you need to see the future.
Fine, do it. Show me. I'll die cold, alone, and afraid. Of course I will. We all do.
And, yeah, that's how they saved the day, is because they got this guy to love this woman in this cryogenically frozen.
Love saves the day.
Yeah.
Time travel is one of those things that, A Christmas Carol is a good example, too, of time travel. Dickens' story that's been made 1,000 times. Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray was in that. He's in Scrooged, which is I was going to say a contemporary remake, but it's 20 years old. So contemporary to me, but not to most people. But it's one of those things that can work well or can be, for me, the Harry Potter time travel, the Horrocks that does time travel. That's my favorite book / movie is The Prisoner of Azkaban. Azkaban, whatever. Not a big Harry Potter guy. Even things I like, I'll say incorrectly because I spend too much time reading, so I don't know how to pronounce things.
Yeah.
But the only problem with it is every book after that you go, well, why don't they just do the time travel thing? Mm-hmm. Now that we know it's in this world, why aren't you just using time travel? I think that's a tough thing. And one of my disses in this is a way they handled it a little poorly.
Yeah, you definitely can't get caught up in the time travel in this or the rules of the time travel. Otherwise, you'll end up with typical reviewer nitpicks. Oh, how can you make it work this time and not make it work this other time? You just can't go there. Okay, so one that I've got, it's funny because we were just talking about Interstellar 5555, which is a 2003 movie. This is also 2003, and it's a time travel movie called Timeline.
That's a Michael Crichton book.
And I remember when I was younger, I was over at a friend of mine's house, and he's like, I've got to show you this part of this movie. It is the most intense piece of cinema you will ever see in your entire life. And he cues up Timeline in the part where they go back in time, and it's just their faces yelling and they're stretched out, blurry, and it was not.
It was not the most intense cinematic experience of your life.
No, not at all. And he stopped playing and he's like, wasn't that intense? And it was a few of us there were like, no, not intense at all. So I would say a time travel movie I don't like is Timeline from 2003. One that I do like is, and it's interesting because when this movie came out, I feel like people kind of hated on it. And now all of a sudden it's this beloved movie, and that's Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. No, everyone loved that, didn't they? I almost mentioned that. Edge of Tomorrow, and then they changed the name to Live, Die, Repeat.
So I thought that was the tagline, but...
And then they changed it for video release to Live, Die, Repeat. You know what the Japanese... that was based on a manga, right?
Yeah, I think the manga's Live, Die, or the source material's Live, Die, Repeat.
No, the manga is All You Need Is Kill.
Oh, okay.
Which is like the coolest title ever.
Yeah, that is
like they
sweet.
should have just left with that.
Right.
All You Need Is Kill.
Yeah, that's good.
Sounds mistranslated. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, probably, but it sounds awesome.
No one names things better than manga and anime creators. No one. Our names suck compared to their names, their titles for things. Just as an example, there's an anime called This Full Dive RPG is Shittier Than Real Life. That's the actual name of a anime, which is just amazing to me.
We'll get to it at some point, probably.
Yes, we have to. I've brought that up multiple times now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and move into what we liked and did not like about Erased.
I see you have made your decision. Now let's see you enforce it.
So Walk the Cinema. Let's hear from the two of you. What's something that you liked about Erased?
I'll let you go first.
I thought it was very enjoyable. I actually didn't have a problem with the time travel rules at all. It was a very fast show. Kept going through, and this is the first anime show I've seen in a while. And I gotta thank you because you recommended it, but it was very fun and it made me want to watch more. And it was intriguing all the way through. I don't really have a favorite moment. I think the whole thing works good together. I do have least favorite moments, but I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. I thought it was super cute in moments of like when they're young and they're just trying to build friendships and all that. Even though the premise of it is kind of dark. I mean, it's about child murders, multiple.
Welcome to anime.
Yeah. But
Japan in general doesn't like kids in school ages.
But I thought it was really cute and really sweet in moments. And I also didn't really have that much of a problem with its time travel. Because I did think about that. I was like, well, he just kind of willed himself to revive here.
Yeah.
Tried it with all his might and it happened, but it didn't really take away from the story for me.
I feel like that makes sense. That his emotions is what makes him travel. So him forcing his emotions, not even forcing his emotions, just expressing them vividly made him travel. And I think the time travel works.
The only problem I had with the time travel in this, because most of it I really liked, I thought the revival was cool. But the one part was he revives and he goes, "This is the last time I can do it."
How do you know that? Yeah.
Like, well, how do you know that? And that has to be for the plot because, again, time travel is hard to do because it can really lower the stakes if, well, I know you can just go to a minute before you just came back, that sort of thing. And they had to throw that in there to so the audience knows oh, okay, this is it. We can't just revival again. We can't Groundhog's Day again.
Well, and to that point, even at the end, the blue butterfly goes by him again, which indicates that it could happen again. So he's a liar or just doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
So I think you could sell it either way. But to me, the point is it's not really about the time travel. The time travel is something that happens in the story, but it's more about the characters. And Merv talks a lot about, what the protagonist needs and wants. Mm-hmm. And I really like that in this story. So to me, he wants to save Kaio and he wants to save the other kids and find out who did it. He needs to learn to rely on other people. And to me, that's why as soon as Kenya, the friend, gets involved and the other friends start getting involved, things start to go better because he needs to learn that he can't just do everything all on his own. So I thought that was a really cool dynamic. And to me, what, the message of the story was, I really enjoyed that bit of it.
I get that, but I also think it's a problem in a way, because I think it was too easy for his friends to trust him and join him.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest problem I have with it. I think the trust that a lot of characters have for each other is a little unfounded, especially his trust for the teacher, which, you know, I feel like it's pretty obvious that it's going to be the teacher. It's indicating, and he kind of just blindly trusts him, and it's infuriating sometimes.
To that point, I thought it was too obvious it was the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought he was a red herring. So I don't know if they were like, let's make it so obvious that you think it's a red herring, and then the twist is it really is him. It's like my favorite genre, the whodunit with one fantastical element, and they have to use that fantastical element to figure out the crime. I'm totally with you on that, where I thought it's so obvious it's him that it's a red herring, so it can't be him. So who else could it be?
Yeah, I think I also had that same feeling, because as soon as there's the scene where Satoru notices the bruises on Kaio's legs and stuff, and he goes to the teacher and he's like, oh yeah, I knew about that, but she'd just be made fun of if we told anybody. So that's fishy behavior. I don't like that.
Yeah. But I didn't completely think it was a red herring, because the main character puts too much trust in him. And I think if they were trying to play it off, maybe you would suspect the teacher also, but he never does. So I think that made it pretty obvious.
They also like trusted the 22 or 23-year-old guy that hung out with all the high school kids and had like a stash of porn and was like super awkward.
And turned out to be a genuine person.
Sure.
Which I thought was great. And I think the way I would sell the teacher thing is, even though he's going back with a 29-year-old mind, he still has the memories of trusting this adult figure as a kid. And as a kid, you're going to be much more trusting of people than as a cynical Merv as an adult, right?
Mm-hmm. Very cynical.
I think the other thing that I thought a lot about with this is, if you think about horror movies, especially like 80s, 90s horror movies, where the kids are the ones dealing with the horror and none of the adults believe them, and all of the adults act like idiots. And to me, that's how it went in this story. Is it wasn't even just the teacher, Child Protective Services, the cops, like any adult figure in this series acted like an idiot and just swept stuff under the rug. And they're like, oh, we can't call the police because it's a Tuesday. It's just really dumb reasons as to why the adults weren't being helpful. So kind of like those older horror movies, the kids had to band together to solve it.
I think a good example too is Christmas movies where gifts show up, but adults still don't believe in Santa.
Yeah, right? Yeah, very true. Very true. What's something else someone's got that you liked or did not like about Erased?
I liked the relationship that Satoru has with his mom.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to like her as a character, because at the beginning she doesn't go visit her son who got hit by a car at the hospital. And so she shows up and she's like, I got bored while I was waiting, so I just came home. And I was like, she's not going to be a character that I like. This is not going to go well for her as a character. But then, when he goes back in time and you see how good of a mom she is to him and how supportive she is, I really found that endearing.
Yeah. She does act a little weird, though.
So don't tell my wife I've got like cartoon crush on the mom in this show, because I think she's written really well and interesting and not stereotypical really in any
she's
way.
not stereotypical at all.
The running gag, the witch, where he's always calling her a witch because she's like saying what he's thinking. It was like, it made me laugh a few times, and I was like, okay. And then it started making me laugh again at the end.
Yeah. She knows what he's thinking because she's a good mom that pays attention to him, and she knows she raised him. So he's going to be a good guy, and he's going to think about certain things that a good guy would think about. Like, he wants to talk to a girl, but it doesn't know how to, and he doesn't want to creep her out or hurt her. Yeah, that's...
Speaking of relationships, I also like Satara. I never know the names.
Sataru,
and what's the first girl? His like girlfriend?
Oh, Irie?
No. In the past.
Kaio.
Kaya?
Kaio.
Kyle?
Kaio.
Like Kyle?
Yeah, but with an O at the end. It's Kaio.
I despise is too strong of a word, but strongly dislike stories where two people fall in love just because one's like there and the other one's there and they don't do anything for each other. They're just like, hey, we're both here, let's fall in love. But in this, it's obvious why they are attracted to each other and why they form like a very strong friendship, because he needs a focus. He's a pizza guy that was never successful doing anything at 29, and she gives him something to focus on and makes him feel like he's accomplishing things in his life, and she needs someone to care about her. And he puts all his focus and effort into her and being with her and caring about her. So you understand why this relationship exists and why they both have feelings for each other beyond just, you have female parts and I have male parts, let's fall in love.
Yeah, the characters are written real well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a diss here written down. So how many kids go missing? Does anyone know?
In this town or the town before?
In the past, how many kids go missing?
Supposed to be 3.
3?
Yeah. But they say, so it changes. Originally at the beginning, it's 2 girls, Kaio and one other. And then it's Kaio and the boy that looks like a girl from their class. And then it's Kaio, the boy that looks like a girl, and another girl from another school. So it might get explained in there somewhere as to how him traveling back and forth affects this. But the number of kids that go missing changes throughout the series, which I thought was a little bit confusing and a little bit
that might be confusing, but it also might be something deep, like if you look into it, if it's different jumps or whatever.
Could be. Yeah, and that's why I said that they might explain it briefly, or it might be an Easter egg you got to kind of dig for.
Yeah, I think that it might just be doing that because I know that I noticed that when he goes back to the present time, like after he had gone back to 1988, he knew all the same people, but Akiri's last name was different. Mm-hmm. So he is like changing certain things, but you would think that he would always have the memory of like that original timeline of who would be missing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's a diss at all. I think it might be confusing, I do agree there, but I do think that they put some thought behind that, and the changing timelines make sense within the story rules.
I like when he goes back to being 9 years old too, or 11 or 10 or whatever, and he doesn't remember everything. Like in a lot of these kind of movies, they would go back and, I remember this day. It was the day he was wearing this and that. And it's like, I can't remember last Tuesday, let alone when I was 10.
He doesn't even remember big events or stuff that he did that like comes to him as he's in the body of the 10-year-old.
Which feels more realistic to me.
That's how that would work.
Right.
If you really went back in time, you wouldn't be like, I remember all this stuff clearly, but you would start to be like, oh yeah, that is familiar. The details are done very, very well. So one detail that I really like is when he wakes up from being in a coma, and it's before Kaio comes in and rejogs his memories. And during that small little time in the show, when he's thinking and we're hearing what he's thinking, it's done with his little kid voice.
Yeah.
And then when Kaio comes in, if you're paying attention, it changes to his adult voice. So that's to let you know, oh, he's remembering what's going on. He's moving back into his adult memories, that type of thing. So just little details like that. And maybe that's why I threw in the number of kids changing as a problem for me, because that wasn't as spelled out as some of the other details, right?
And just to kind of talk more about Satoru and Kaio's relationship, I saw some criticism because I like to look at what other people are saying about it, and I saw a lot of people criticize the ending specifically because they don't end up together. But I actually kind of like it because I always saw their relationship as more of a big brother trying to protect his little sister, and it kind of, I feel like it would kind of send a different kind of message if she just waited for him this whole time.
No one in real life is gonna wait 15 years or what, I think it was 15 years. Yeah.
Someone that you knew when you were 10 years old.
She's 10. She doesn't have any romantic interest in him. I don't even know if she knew what romance was.
Yeah, and I think it kind of reminded me of a reverse 13 going on 30, where, it's the 13-year-old girl that wakes up in a 30-year-old body.
I think it's cute that people wanted them to end up together. I think that's a cute thing, and I think that's a fine thing for, regular people to say about the show. Yeah. There's a word that's getting thrown around a lot in storytelling, though, and that's subverting expectations, right?
Yeah.
And there's bad ways to do it and good ways to do it. And bad ways to do it we could talk about. But to me, this is a good way to subvert expectations because you kind of expect them to be together. You kind of expect it in a normal story to end with it being the Kaio and Satoru marriage or whatever.
Well, you also don't expect him to go into a 15-year coma and that be the actual timeline that we live in.
Yeah.
Like, that's the final timeline.
Yeah, that was also a criticism I saw, that they're like, oh, he lost so many years.
You already lived those years.
And if I woke up...
self-sacrifice.
Yeah, it is self-sacrifice. But if I woke up in my 11-year-old self, I would not want to relive those years.
True.
Even if I wanted to change certain things, I wouldn't want to like go through the effort of living,
right.
So many years.
Well, there's also reason to believe that he remembers all of the timelines because he becomes still a famous mangakata.
Yeah, he remembers everything.
Yeah, so he actually gains gains years because he's only 26 when he wakes up from the coma, and he's 29 when he originally jumps back. So he gains those 3 years to like build, to go back and do, a little redo.
Yeah, and I think that it also shows that because when at the very end he sees Akira, whatever.
Irie, yeah.
Irie, that's it.
Yes.
He sees her again and he starts crying.
And they get together, they do.
Yeah.
Because they spent enough time developing her as a great character. And to anyone who's mad that he didn't end up with Kaio, that's kind of the carrot to that is, well, there's this other girl that was also great. And to me, honestly, I'd rather be with Irie than Kaio.
And it makes the most sense, too, if you think about it for more than just, I prefer this character.
Mm-hmm.
As a story development, it makes way more sense.
So you're telling me that you'd rather be with, when you're 25, a 17-year-old than a 25-year-old? That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's less weird than the 29-year-old having to remind himself that he's 29.
It's very true. One of the other details I kind of like that they gloss over that they don't really talk about is it's a leap year. And they're giving those dates and they go from February 28th, February 29th to March 1st.
Oh, good pickup.
So that's just like a kind of one of those things where when you're a kid, especially when you're like 9, 10, a leap year does feel like time travel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got this extra day. I have to go to school.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was putting in those dates in my story recap, and when they didn't line up, I didn't even think of that. So that was a good pickup. Who else has anything else they would like to say about Erased?
Well, I'll say another story thing then, and then my diss is that they didn't use it enough, is his mom is killed in the present. So that gives him something actually personal when he goes back to fix things. It's not just like, I need to save these random kids that I didn't really know growing up. It's, I have to save these kids so that I can save my mom.
Yeah.
You put that personal stakes into the conflict, we feel more for the protagonist.
The mom was really badass.
I like that it was Kyle's mom doing the abuse too, and we got the reason why, because she went through abuse, and so you get kind of some sympathy. But usually what you have with the single mom is like, she had a string of boyfriends and all the boyfriends abused Kyle,
Yeah.
So it's nice, again, like good subversion of like stereotypes and expectations.
Yeah, I definitely think that this anime made me want to watch more.
It definitely did.
Good.
It was so good. I don't know.
And I
really enjoyed it.
It was good to watch more than it was good, like quality-wise of the story. It's just really fun to watch, which we don't normally watch anime. We've been watching Bones. Not great, but yeah, we immediately looked on Netflix for like more like this and try to figure something to watch, but we have an expert here, so obviously we're going to watch his suggestions first.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was watching the end of Erased again to get ready for this episode, and my wife was sitting next to me, and I went to more like this, and none of them were anime. I found that really strange. We watched it on Netflix, and I'm like, none of these are anime. We just got done watching an anime. Why are you recommending to me The Man That Gets Pregnant or whatever? That's not.
Well, every Netflix recommendation is their own stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, did you watch this? Then you'd like this other thing that we made that's nothing like what you just watched.
And they make anime. They make some pretty decent anime sometimes too.
Don't say Dota.
I didn't say Dota.
Okay.
There was that one we were talking about though called Bubble, and it's very Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay, I really like
so-
Hell's Moving Castle.
Yeah, it's very it has that same kind of tonality to it. So
This reminded me of Your Name,
yep,
a lot of
similar.
Your Name, which I think is really good.
I think Erased is a lot better than Your Name, personally. But
I think
we have the episode on that.
Right.
But I think they're different, but I do think I liked Erased more, but I think that's also because it gets fleshed out a little bit more since
It's a lot more time.
and
It makes more sense.
yeah, I really liked how short the episodes were because it felt very snappy.
Yeah.
It felt like a lot was happening,
Right.
but it also was really quick and easy to watch. Like we split it up into 2 days. We watched half of it on Friday and half of it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, now I want more.
Yeah,
like
it was
I
really
even want
nice, yeah.
more of the story. Like I want to know what happens to him even like more like afterwards. Like after he's,
It still didn't make you want to watch the live action, though.
Is there a live action of this?
Yeah, it's a Netflix original.
Oh.
Just don't. I can tell you already, just don't. You won't like it.
Probably line for line remake.
Yeah, probably.
They usually reimagine it for a modern audience when they do a anime live action. So
It was a year after it came out, though.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was 2017.
Maybe it escaped all that.
I doubt we're going to watch it, but
No, we're not going to skip it. We're going to take their suggestion.
What we usually say is instead of doing that, just watch the anime again because you probably get more out of rewatching it because they do such a good job of, and we've talked about a few of them, just putting in little Easter eggs and things like that, things that you pick up on second viewing.
I guess my one like true criticism is it can be a little goofy sometimes. Like even the more serious parts, I feel like we found some like.
I mean, we laughed.
Yeah,
we made fun of the voice acting.
Well, yeah, but that was like that's not on the anime itself.
Yeah, it's not.
There's just like I don't know. Sometimes it felt a little comical to me. Sometimes that the teacher was truly the one that was the person that did it.
Yeah, the teacher was a little goofy sometimes, especially in the car scenes.
And it's like he's got the candy.
Very obvious.
Very on the nose, yeah.
And he was the one trying to convince him. I mean, the title Erased is cool because like the kids are erased, their memories are erased, part of his life is erased. So it has like all these like layers.
I think part of it too is like learning another language. So as you learn another language, it actually changes your brain and how you think about things. And I think part of it too is I'm pretty confident as you continue to watch anime, find more anime that you like, you adapt to it a little bit, and some of the things that feel goofy, strange, maybe a little bit off, you don't even notice it. Like I don't even notice. I have to like force myself to try to see anime weird anymore because it's all just so, something I've seen so many times. So I think hopefully at least if that's one thing that was a diss or a struggle or something you didn't like about this, that'll ease as you continue to watch them.
I'm to the point where nothing in this was strange to me.
Yeah.
Took you 8 months?
Yeah, about 8 months. Because if you watch some other stuff, then you'll see Goofy.
Yeah. I've seen Goofy.
Yeah, some of it's really good. Like there's good Goofy and there's bad Goofy.
So I think that's my biggest like about this is it's kind of twofold. So one, it is accessible. This is something you could recommend to someone who's not watched any anime and they could watch it and enjoy it. And a big part of that is that it's a complete story. It's not a ton to watch. It's longer than a typical movie, but it's not a ton to watch. It's accessible and it's a complete, well done story. So I think it has all of the makings of something that we can recommend to others. So I'm glad we got to talk about it today.
Very happy that we watched this.
Yes.
Changed my mind a lot more about anime.
Me too.
Well, there's obviously different categories of anime, and this is probably considered, I don't even know, a romance, which doesn't really mean romance. It's just, that's the kind of, it's more like realism. I'm probably getting this all wrong because I don't know very much. But then there's like the stuff that's kind of for younger boys and girls, like shonen and stuff. That's when people think of anime, that's generally what they think of. The My Hero Academia, the Demon Slayer, those kind of things, which they're cartoons for adults, or they have some adult stuff, but they're mostly cartoons still for like young adults. Whereas this is just a cartoon for adults.
Yeah, there's a seinen is the overarching kind of type. It's for, like more adult people. I would say it definitely has romance elements to it as well. I think that's a fair label that you could put on it. Yep.
I tried to get into Naruto as an adult a couple years ago, and I couldn't get past 2-3 episodes. It was very hard for me.
And that's shonen, classic shonen.
Yeah.
Erased is like right up my alley in terms of like storyline.
It was the perfect suggestion.
The ending, I really enjoyed the ending. I was a little worried when I saw people. I didn't read any spoilers, but I did like see some people like, if only they didn't do the ending, I would have liked it more. I loved it, so.
Yeah, I liked the ending because it was both a downer but also hopeful. And those are like the best endings because they feel realistic. It's like, yeah, everything sucks, but there's this little bright ray of hope and we've accomplished some goals, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, this is at least the second town where this guy has killed a bunch of kids.
But he doesn't have to, he stopped him from killing more people.
Right.
For 15 years, yeah.
He said that after Satoru had been in the coma, he like lost that need to kill. For all those years, so he ended up probably saving a lot more because I doubt that, in the original timeline that he stopped killing. Didn't seem like he was gonna stop anytime soon.
They almost never do.
And there's so much there because, Kate, to your point, so Satoru would save one kid and then the teacher Yashiro would need to replace that kid with another. So it kept putting more kids in danger until it ended with him trying to kill Satoru himself. And then Satoru survived. And then there's that whole story about the hamster and all that. And I thought that was really cool because there's a lot there to the psychology behind why he stopped. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Does anyone else have anything else you would like to say to anyone else about Erased?
One last thing.
Okay.
And this happens in like every anime
Is
we
it
talk
bad?
about.
Are you going to end on a bad?
It's only a little bad. I like the art in this, but there's always something. And it was like the nose triangles in one and this kind. But sometimes the characters with the thicker lips looked like they had mustaches. Little tiny mustaches, and that it was hard for me not to see that. Once I was like, oh, that kind of looks like a mustache. Then it was just a mustache from that point forward.
She has fish lips, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Kate. I thought like Botox lips is what I thought with a couple of the women. It was Satoru's mom and then Kaio's mom that both had the duck lips. Yeah, that's what I thought of. So very good.
Otherwise, I really like this style.
We can end it on a positive and say that these characters had good plastic surgeons for their Botox injections. So that way we end on a positive. All right, let's try again. Does anyone else have anything else that you would like to say to anyone else about Erased?
No.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Walk the Cinema, for joining us. It was super fun. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope we get to do it again soon. And yeah, that's all I got. You can find us on animeshoshin.com, and you can find Walk the Cinema at
the Linktree / Walk the Cinema. Walk the Cinema anywhere. You can just Google it.
Yeah, any podcast app you're using, just type in Walk the Cinema and they'll come up.
Yep, which according to statistics, like 40% of you would be Spotify. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
It's over for you. You're done. But you'll be back.